Hello, everybody. We are live a little bit later than planned. If you are there, hope you've managed to join us. Let us know where you are. I've just got a message here. The event is on LinkedIn, so we'll repost that link again in case anyone has not got it. But yeah, we're live on LinkedIn. Great, I can see lots of people joining now. We're live on LinkedIn and on YouTube. Sorry for the late start. We've had a few technical difficulties and we're still trying to get Julio's audio sorted. So I hope that he will be able to join us for this chat. It'll be really interesting to hear his thoughts. He'll definitely be joining us in the chat, so watch out for his comments along the way. Hi to everyone who's joined. Hi there, Ray. Apologies for showing that. Yes, just to clarify, the event is just on the event link via LinkedIn. I'm not sure what link Stacey's posted. Hi, Katarzyna from Warsaw. Great to have you here. Just going to show a few of these to welcome everybody. We've got people from all over coming along. It's great. Joining us from Kiev. Wonderful. Jose, hi. Thanks for coming along. Christina also joining us from South America. Great. We've got Luis joining us from Angola. Welcome, Luis, and welcome, Najma, in Pakistan. Got lots of people joining us from around the world. That is awesome. Great. Thanks for joining. So what we're going to do today, as I said, I really hope that Julio is able to join us. He is here in the chat on LinkedIn for sure, and he's trying to join us and get his audio sorted. But regardless, we're going to have a really interesting discussion about native speakerism. So I decided to schedule this webinar and chatted to Julio about this because of a poll that I ran on LinkedIn. Just want to show you guys something. Just before I show you, I should introduce myself. Hopefully you know who I am, but I'm Phil, the English writing coach. So my mission is to help multilingual writers who use English to improve their language proficiency and get better opportunities. I do lots of helpful courses and great. Sorry, I'm just trying to bring Julio on board. Julio, can you say something for us? See if your audio is working. He's gone. All right, let's crack on with the reason that I scheduled this webinar, and that is this poll, interesting poll which I ran for everybody in my network who has a background. Many of the writers in my network in LinkedIn have a background with different languages. And I asked this question. I asked a question about, have you suffered from native speakerism? Many people said yes, lots of people responding here, so it was great, and there's some really great conversation around this as well. But a huge number of the writers in my network that responded said they have suffered from native speakerism, and interestingly, quite a lot of people as well saying they don't know, they're not really sure, because it really needs defining, and we want to discuss what native speakerism is as well. So I hope that Julio is able to tell us in the chat his thoughts about what native speakerism is. Julio Menochelli is a bilingual writer and teacher from Brazil. He works in many capacities, but I would describe him as a language consultant and expert. So please tell us in the chat, Julio, what do you think native speakerism, what does the term mean? Feel free to comment and tell us as well. What do you think that native speakerism is? What is that for you? I'm going to try Julio's audio again. Still no audio from you, Julio. I can see you backstage. I'm going to bring Julio's image on. Hi there, Julio. Can you hear us? Can you speak? He can hear us. We can't hear you still, unfortunately. I hope it's not. Well, I hope it is just me, but please comment in the chat if you are struggling to hear Julio as well. Sorry once again for the technical issues. You've paused now, Julio. Yeah, I think. Yeah, thanks for commenting. Yeah, I think we're having difficulty hearing you still. I'm going to take you off screen again, and I really hope we can still have an interesting discussion about native speakerism. I'm really sorry for you guys that you're not able to hear Julio's great thoughts on all of this. But we've got some comments here about native speakerism. Johan, thanks for commenting. Native speakerism, Johan says, is to me when people blindly assume that native speakers of a certain language are also proficient in that language. That's certainly not true. That native speakers are always proficient or better in any respect in the language. To me, native speakerism is a discrimination, a form of discrimination which rears its head in many forms. I should say that my background is that I am a native speaker of English. I come from the UK and was an English teacher for many years, and I really didn't know much about this subject until I came into contact with colleagues from other countries and with other language backgrounds who had suffered discrimination, who were not able to do that. I'm keeping an eye on everyone's messages because I hope you'll all be able to get something from this and participate. Yes, Katarina says Julio could leave the connection and try again. Yeah, I'd recommend that, Julio, if you're listening, maybe just reboot and try and come back in. I know it's frustrating for us all. All right. Yeah, so this, thanks for this opinion as well, Zoe. The assumption that native speakers are proficient better simply because they speak the language as L1. This applies to mostly language-related professions like language teaching. Certainly, yes. And Julio's an expert in that industry, so that's why we had him along. Yeah, it's certainly prevalent in the English teaching industry, and I think it also translates to the writing industry, and that's what I wanted to talk about today. Let's share Ray's opinion. Ray Berry, welcome, Ray. Ray is an agency owner, also from the UK. To take a favourable bias of first language speakers and discriminate against those who use the desired language as their second language. Yes, I should say that even using the term native speaker or excluding non-native speakers from applying for jobs, for example, or a certain job is illegal. in the EU and is certainly questionable everywhere else. I'd also like to invite everyone. I know this topic is going to promote a lot of discussion. And yeah, I'd also like to say that obviously it's a sensitive topic and there's people on both sides of the equation and there's going to be lots of strong opinions. So I hope everyone can contribute in a really respectful and inclusive way and be aware of others' differences. I'm really looking forward to hearing your opinions and seeing what kind of thought-provoking discussions come up. Great. So let's share a few opinions on native speakerism and what that means. Maria works in medical writing. Yes, I think it relates to writing as well, Maria, in a lot of different ways. I think there are many writers around the world, many of whom are my clients that I help that are writing in English as their second language. And I think even some of this terminology about non-native speaker or non-native writer can be tricky because there isn't a great term to replace that. I personally like multilingual writers because it simply shows that people are able to speak in or write in more than one language. Mike, thought from Mike. He said, "Welcome, Mike. Is it okay for someone who's is it okay to ask for someone who speaks at a native level?" Well, as I said, in terms of jobs, that can be tricky. There are certainly advantages and benefits that native speakers bring to the table, and there are obviously advantages and benefits that multilingual writers and speakers bring to the table. So I've got some comments and some ideas later on, and hopefully you can contribute too about how this manifests and what we can do about it. Right, I'm going to keep trying to bring Julio on board and see if we can get some audio going. Still no audio. I think the issue, Julio, if you've rebooted everything, could be just without headphones, it's not going to pick up the sound because it's trying to avoid an echo. Let's move on. Hopefully, we have defined in some way what native speakerism is. There are lots of great historical perspectives on this native speakerism and the idea of native speakers of English being more proficient comes definitely from a colonial past and the history of what has happened with colonialism. So that's an interesting perspective, and I'd advise you all to take a look at some of the articles that Julio has written, which I'll tell you how to get hold of at the end of this session. But there's some really interesting historical perspectives that surround why many people believe wrongly that only native speakers can practice the language in a proficient way. So I'd like to talk now about what I perceive some of the problems to be, and I'll be keeping an eye on the comments to see what you think along the way. I'm doing that now. Great. So some of the problems I think come up with native speakerism, certainly as I see it, are that it propagates and continues the inequality of wealth. Writers and workers from countries who are not part of the top economies in the world are unable to gain the benefits of working for employers and clients who are in top economies. In a way, native speakerism keeps the wealth in a lot of Western countries or in a lot of top economy countries. So for me, that's one of the problems, because there are so many talented people all across the world who want to benefit from gaining more wealth through working these jobs from those countries. It also reduces diversity. I mean, diversity is a big conversation nowadays, and rightly so. I think many things are going in the right direction here. Publishers and employers are looking to promote diversity and to try and have a wider range of voices writing for them. Now, this is great, but if we stick to American or British or Australian or other native writers only, that in some way reduces the brilliant diversity that we have across the world. Remember, writers, wherever you're from, you bring a unique perspective, and that's incredibly valuable. It also sort of reduces the diversity of the English language. English is not owned by any institution, by any country, or by any company, and it's great that it's flourishing around the world and changing and being adapted. And I think all of these versions of English, as long as they can be widely understood, are valuable and add to the richness of language. So when we focus on native speakers only, or native writers, that reduces the diversity of the language. Another issue, as I see it, and let me know if you're there, if you're agreeing with me. I feel very lonely without a partner in crime here to talk to. Another issue is that it reduces the confidence of writers and speakers. If you're constantly being told that you're not the right person for the job, or that your writing is worth less than that of an American writer or a British writer, it impacts your confidence. And this is something that we struggle with as writers, all of us. Rejection is tough, and we all want to communicate that we have a certain value. Final thought on why native speakerism is an issue. It's that many media owners, many companies that we could write for, are misinformed about their audiences. I think many media brands would like to promote the authority, the history of their brand as a top English newspaper, or as a magazine which is comes out of LA. But many of the readers come from around the world. So if we're using higher level idiomatic language, for example, then they're not actually delivering what their audiences want, what readers want, which is a perhaps clearer copy, which is articles which deliver the meaning quickly and more simply, so that everyone can understand and interact with it. So that, in my idea, is why we have a lot of problems with native speakerism. I'm keeping my eye on the chat. Let's have a look at some of your comments. I'd love to show some of those. Right. Just going to share here. Bloggerta, welcome. Flo says, my biggest problem is that if I enter the native speakers market and publish a book, people will assume that my book has mistakes and they'll nitpick on that, or even crucify a mistake. Definitely, I think what is and isn't a mistake is always a fluid question, right? There's no, there must be some lines to what is and isn't acceptable in a language for us to understand and participate in it. But also there should be room for, as we said, diversity. And I think it's up to everyone around the world to educate ourselves, including native speakers, including publishers, about the need for a more diverse language and the fact that world English or different world Englishes can coexist, and that it's a great form of expression. It's definitely something that I've noticed, Flo, while reading works in translation or authors like Alif Shafak, who writes in English, but that's not her first language. And that's definitely becoming more common now. So wishing you success on your publishing journey. Belinda, welcome along. She says, linguistic imperialism is something to research if you're interested in why certain inequitable structures exist. Beautifully expressed. Yes, and Julio's written some articles on that too, so definitely check them out. Just looking if I can share another comment. Christina, thanks for joining. Wow, you've got some really meaty opinions here. I love it. I truly believe that those who have knowledge of various languages have also had to work harder to develop their skills in various languages. So many times they are even better than native speakers because they've truly worked for it. Certainly in terms of language, yes. This can also have a really good impact on grammar as well, that those who learn a language have to learn the building blocks of what go into it. As a native speaker of English, I can say that most people I know claim, well, we didn't study that at school. I don't know all these grammatical terms, because it's around us all the time. And these grammatical rules many of them are taken on through osmosis, and some of them, the higher level ones, we might not know. So yeah, definite advantage for non-native speakers there. Thanks for that opinion. Let's talk about how this relates to the writing industry. I touched on that a little bit with some of the problems. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments about how native speakerism, how discrimination against writers whose first language is not English, how is that playing out? Is it something that is affecting you and your business? Is it something that you're having discussions with employers, with clients, with colleagues? I know there's a lot of good discussions going on LinkedIn. I'm trying to keep an eye on messages as well to see if Julio will be able to drop in and give his opinions. Great. Let's carry on and talk about my next point, which is how English as a language is interacting between these various groups of writers, various groups of people who speak different languages. Does English need some kind of anchor? Now, I know in Spanish there is an institution which looks after the Spanish language and mandates what is and isn't acceptable use of the language, grammatically, vocabulary-wise. That's something really interesting to me, because English, you may or may not know this, is not even the official language of the United States. In other English language, native English speaking countries, there are often other languages as well which share the official language status. Yet there is no one institution which says this is acceptable use or not acceptable use. There are various dictionaries which maybe publish new words or accept new words. And there's definitely a growing diversity of the language. One role that I see as important for native speakers is to help everyone navigate a path to a diverse language which can be understood by writers and readers worldwide. That's something I find super interesting about my job, in that clients often tell me, oh, well, in my field, we have agreed that we'll use this term. And to me, as a native speaker, that's not something I've encountered before. A particular term of, in medical writing or in scientific writing, for example. But if it's something that in a community has been agreed and is widely used, then it becomes acceptable use. Another example is, I remember a long time ago, a contact got in touch and said my best hellos. And this was something that actually came from the Finnish language, I believe. That's something that, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Finns in their first language would say my best hellos to you. And it just struck me as a sort of wonderfully different greeting in English. It's not something that we would encounter in daily life, in daily emails in Britain, for example, but something that I just thought was great, and an example of a term where we can add a lot of things, add a lot of expressions, and create this diversity. But we still need native speakers to help everyone navigate what is going on, right? If there are absolutely no rules to a language, then it can be very tricky to actually understand for everyone.
Can you hear me?
Something.
Can you hear me now?
All right,
You can?
everyone to give
You can?
thumbs up. We can hear you.
Oh, really? Is it really? Oh my God!
Everyone
I'm
who's
terribly
there,
sorry.
give him a big thumbs up.
Oh God, yes. Well,
Wonderful.
I'm terribly sorry for that. Wow. Thank you.
No problem. We all
Uh,
suffer technical challenges, right? Can you introduce yourself to everyone? Who are you? What do you do?
I am an English language teacher at heart. Started about 30 years ago, and after that I went into publishing. I worked for publishing companies like Macmillan, Pearson, and all of them actually. So I became an expert in publishing books in English language. So I know exactly what native like, stuff like that. You can know with like that. Example. Terribly sorry, audience. Terribly sorry. Would you like to carry on? Can you hear me?
We're losing you a little bit, Julio. Yeah, please carry on. The
No?
your connection is a little bit unstable, so if you want to turn your video off, perhaps that will help us to hear you.
Yeah, I'm terribly afraid of it. Can you hear me better? Is the internet better?
Yeah, I think that's better.
Connection
That's
is better.
clearer for me. Hope it is for
Okay,
everyone
so
else. Tell us your thoughts, Julio. What is native-speakerism? Why is it a problem?
yes, the strange thing or the weird thing about the word native speakerism is that most people relate it to English, right? But it can refer to any other language, right? If you're in Spain and you speak Spanish, or if you're in Brazil and you speak Portuguese, Brazilian Portuguese, right? Yes, we love the videos better.
There's a commentator's curse. Your audio's cutting out a bit now,
So,
Julio.
so there is a
Carry on.
strong, no matter how qualified the non-native speaker is, there is a way for the market to think or to imagine or to suppose, and there are reasons for that. That the native speaker is always better, right? Let's start from the beginning then, right?
Sure, yeah, go ahead. We can hear you fine.
The roots for that. So it all started with the power of Britain, right? The colonization of places, countries. It all boils down to money, political reasons, and social reasons, right? So English is the science, the language of communication, and unfortunately, um, the native speaker of the English language, not all of them, because uh, uh, there are a lot of problems with people that are native speakers of English, but from the colonies, right? So they are not considered native speakers, pure native speakers, as they say, right? So there's a tendency to marketing trends to consider the native speaker as a commodity that will bring more money or advertise better the institution or the piece of writing or whichever field you're referring to, because it's unfortunately the standard of the native speaker is what is considered correct, right? Either American
Julio, you're cutting out a bit again. I hope
and
everyone's been able
that
to
there are so many varieties.
got you back.
Is it cutting out? Is it all right? Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's okay at the moment. Carry on.
All right. So because of the power of the United States and the power of Britain and the thought that colonies still have about themselves, they don't value themselves as. There are problems on both sides, right? First of all, the colonizers. They are no longer colonizers, right? And colonies that see them, these Brazilians, for example, we all ourselves as a colony of Portugal, as a result, a colony of Europe, as a result, a colony of Britain, as a result, a colony of the United States. So there is a lot of undervaluation of us as colonies, right? So that's the historical roots of Native-Speakerism, right? And it all started in the English language teaching, and that's why I'm here, right? So what's this teacher talking about, right? Because it influences your area of writing, uh, whichever writing you do, either it's user or experience writing, or if you're writing a book or whatever you write, a report for something, it will reflect on that. Because how do you learn English, or how do native speakers learn English? Right? Of
Yeah,
course, they have
love that,
the
Julio.
contact with the language.
Just to jump in for a second, I
Yeah,
love what you said about it's going to
it's
affect, the type of writing that we all
good.
do, because language and writing
Stuff.
are different things, but they're uniquely interconnected, right? We can't really have one without the other. So yeah, totally agree on that front. Maybe I just want to remind everyone, if you can, if you want to get any questions in, please just ask your questions in the chat, and we'll get to those at the end. I'll be able to share some of those. Let's go back to you, Julio, now, and ask, what do you think are some? We've talked about sort of the roots of native speakerism and why it's an issue. What are some of the ways that we can overcome this challenge? I think everybody out there listening is here to find out, what can we do about this? What's your opinion?
There are several different things that we can do. First, as individuals, right? First, as advocates, that is something that is not acceptable nowadays, right? Us first, right? If you acknowledge, yourself as a non-native speaker of that language, to do that, advocate it, right? So
100%, 100%. I mean, I have people
also
getting in touch with me every day who, say, can I do this? Or, is it worth continuing now? ChatGPT has come along, or because I don't have a C2, certificate in English. Believe in yourselves. You've done great to learn a language to an advanced level, and what you have to say is worthwhile. So
okay. The only thing that
do, Julio?
is that you're going to continue studying the language, right? So studying the subject matter is extremely important. That you think that you are, native speakers are better or as good as good qualified, but you must study the language, right? Continue to study.
Definitely.
Also,
native speakers too, right? We need to be learning new words and techniques.
Exactly. Well, you should avoid companies that have that way of thinking. So if they think that native speakers are better than non-native speakers, avoid them. They will need you. Yes, mind you, because if collectively you decide not these companies. First of all, they're not diversity oriented, and you know very well that the word of the moment, right, is diversity, right? So if a company, it's bad for them, right? So it's bad marketing for them. So it's even if they don't believe so. So if a company is not aware of diversity and how to manage diversity themselves, they're not doing the right thing at the moment, right? So
I'd even go a step further, Julio. Sorry to butt in. I know you've got a little delay on your line, but I'd even go a step further and say, let's call these companies out. If anybody sees job postings on LinkedIn saying native speakers only, let me know, because I'm always willing to jump on and give my opinion. But that's wrong, and it, as I said, illegal in some places. So let's call companies out in the right way by saying, this practice isn't helpful to anyone. So I advise everyone to do that. Good idea.
Yeah, it doesn't show. It's reverse marketing for them, right? It's just like avoiding hiring women. It's just like the same thing. Whichever publishers or thing, try and avoid it and spread the word around. So that company is not politically correct. But for you to do that, you don't have a voice for that. You don't have a voice. voice is not loud enough. So you've got
Great. So
to take
we've
part.
talked, Julio, about overcoming this feeling of of inability yourself, and also talked about calling out these companies who have bad practices of discrimination. What else can we do to change this paradigm of native speakerism?
Yes, so there are lots of groups. There's lots of research and specialized research saying that's not correct. That is not free speaker is better than a qualified non-native speaker.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't you post things everywhere? Why don't you look for research to advocate this? Why don't you take part in groups that do something about it, right? That promote diversity and avoid native speakerism. So if you
Great.
are an English language teacher, there are lots of associations. ITEFL in Europe or the TEFL in the United States, and for the teachers there, assessment, right? Testing centers, because unfortunately, when one is tested, the standard that you have to you are usually compared with is the standard of a native speaker of that language. But things are changing. So artificial intelligence is helping change that, because when you take, for example, the TOEFL exam, artificial intelligence notices how well or how badly you're doing, and it automatically grades or promotes diversity in the language. It doesn't consider it wrong because it's not. It's just a hue of the language, right? A nuance.
It's interesting you talk about AI, Julio, just to jump in on that one, because I think there's been some stories recently about AI detection being discriminatory, shall we say, against multilingual writers, because often AI uses simpler structures or more readable writing and plain English, and that is often detected as AI when it's not. So there's so many questions which surround these different uses of English that relate to AI. I think it's a really interesting discussion that I hope to be talking about in more detail another day, about what it means to navigate this world of AI writing and human writing. I just before you carry on, Julio, I just wanted to share a couple of just before you carry on, I just wanted to share a couple of my perspectives on how we can overcome native speakerism. You've made a lot of great points about the ESL industry, about trusting yourself and believing in yourself, and calling out these bad actors in the writing industry. I'd add to that, we really need education on this, as well as advocacy. Of course, advocacy is the way to start this conversation. But highly recommend that we all learn more about this ourselves, and that if you are involved in companies, media owners, governmental agencies, then it's high time that we improve the education of that as well. Julio, you're breaking up a bit. We can't hear you very well. Sorry.
That's right. Yes. Yes, you said it correctly. So first of all, don't work for these companies, right? Say, uh, take part in they're wonderful initiatives for you to have an idea. Sometimes was I can't recall the name. A platform was designed and created native speakers to write there, right? And
Hmm.
with some input of speakers or not, it turned out to be absolutely fantastic. And the result of the pieces of writing there from non-native speakers, they were absolutely fantastic. Got a lot of media attention, lots of other places copied the model of the platform because diversity, right? How beautiful is that? Is I hate this word. What is English? Tell me, what is it? Exist, right? Even Britain or in America or in Canada or anywhere. So, what is English, right? It depends. It depends a lot, right? It depends who is writing, talking. So many aspects of their language that you have to take part to consider, and even the common European framework of the CEFR is right. I don't know if they know, Philip, what that is. Do they? The common European
Yeah, I
framework
think I
for
think many people who are here will know what that is, but it's the typical language level denomination, right, of A1, A2, B1, B2, and so on, which gives you a framework of how proficient you are in a language.
yeah. What, yeah, what was this one?
You're breaking up a bit again,
Yeah,
Julia. I hope everyone was able
and
to catch what you
at the
said.
in
Yeah, let's move on and
bad
just discuss
for
a
moment,
couple of
bad
other ways
for moment.
that I think. Sorry to butt in over you, Julia. I know you're talking, but
There is
our audience can't hear you at all. So
one. That's an important thing because if they are changing it,
don't know
exams
if I
will
can.
change, books are changing, and lots of things will change. Good.
Great. Yeah, thanks for that, Julia. I was just saying, sorry for talking over you if that's causing a bit of confusion, but it's it's really difficult for everyone to hear you because of connection issues. Um, just a couple of other ways I think that we can try and overcome this challenge of native speakerism. I mean, these are my thoughts. The reason that a lot of companies use this practice of native speakers only, or we only want American writers, is because they're lazy. They're too lazy to assess proficiency of a large number of applications or portfolios. And I think that's something that we can work on together. Maybe AI can play a role in that. But assessing the quality of writing in a faster and more equitable way is definitely necessary for companies to choose a diverse range of writers. So I wonder if anyone's got any ideas on that, but it's certainly something that we need some technological help on to make sure that companies are making informed decisions, not discriminatory ones. Yeah, and my final points on this idea of what we can do is I think multilingual writers really need to communicate their value. Right? They need to worry about how they can show how valuable their work is rather than talking about years of experience or a particular qualification. What is the way that you can build your authority and show how valuable your work is? That's not an easy question to answer. It's something I talk about a lot on LinkedIn, but of course it is showing the results of your work and trying to demonstrate the quality of your writing, even through the outreach that you practice and the brand that you promote. So that's definitely something to pay attention to, and always remember that we want to be promoting value, not just the black and white of
And
a particular qualification.
and
Julia, go ahead.
that's true. But and when you ask a peer to revise your work, don't always hire or invite a native speaker of the language to do so, right? Please show with example, right? So there are, your colleagues that are no native speakers, get them and put their names there, revised by such and such from wherever. So don't don't fall yourselves into the trap of believing that bias is only in the neighbors, because we are also very very biased too.
Yeah, very,
Because
very
think
important.
think about your language, your native language. If you've got a very important report to be written and you don't write it, would you hire a qualified non-native speaker of your language to write it, or would you rather hire a native speaker of your language? Well, not so qualified, but a native speaker of your language.
So
We are
true.
writing professionals, so maybe we'll be politically correct, but in truth, in at the deep end, I doubt it.
Yeah, that's so true. I think that's there are so many changes that we need to make within ourselves, within our practices, within our mindset, as well as as a society. That's a really interesting starting point for believing that you do write and use quality language. As long as you are studying it and improving it, for sure.
Yeah, study the subject matter that you do, right? That you work with, because
Of
I
course,
can't imagine people that the writing profession, they do not study writing.
that's it.
It's
Goes for any industry, right? We want to study.
yeah,
We want to, take training, take courses, and personal study.
yes,
Um,
yes,
yeah,
for
let's.
God's sake, yeah, please, because I've seen so many in my area English language teachers that they say, well, it takes me so long to be promoted if I study this and that. Well, but if you don't, you will never be, right? So if you don't continue studying writing, the subject matter that you do, you won't be able to get, big jobs, big things, big opportunities.
Great point. Yeah, it's all about developing ourselves. Julio's dropped out. I hope everything is okay at his end. We'll see if we can get him back, but we're going to wrap up soon because we've gone over time a little bit because of technical issues. If you've got a question or a comment, then get it in now because I'd love to see it before we end. Katarzyna says, we could try to seek outstanding multilingual writers who've contributed in important ways. Joseph Conrad comes to mind. Yes, definitely. Great writer who was not a native speaker of English, wrote in English. Hi, Julio. Welcome back. We're just talking
Mhm.
writing or bilingual or multilingual writers. A couple of others spring to mind, Katarzyna. I think Vladimir Nabokov was. Who is the Kasuro Ishiguro, the Japanese
Exactly.
British writer?
That's absolutely
Elif
wonderful.
Shafak, as I mentioned earlier, who's a Turkish writer who writes in English. A lot of great examples of people who are writing in another language, which certainly in literature is absolutely fantastic. And I can't imagine doing that. So well done to anyone who does.
That's true. And for you to have an idea, yes, one of the things that I do is that I teach academic English for PhD candidates from universities all over the world, right? So Cambridge University sometimes hires me to teach English PhD candidates how to write articles, for God's sake. Yes, and I'm 100% Brazilian artist, so you can do it. Yes,
What better proof than if you speak English
yes,
doesn't mean you can write great English.
they hate it when I say that I'm 100% Brazilian. I look at them, hello, yes, I'm Brazilian, and I'll teach you English. Boom. Yes, but at the end, they thank me because uh, they if they don't write well, academically speaking, they will not be able to publish. If they don't publish, the university doesn't get the grants from the government. If they get caught plagiarizing anything, they have to return all the money that they received in the years that they were at university. So it's a big catastrophe. So, and we're good. We're good. Trust yourselves.
All right. On that note, Julio, we're gonna wrap up. So, do you have anything that you'd like to tell everybody finally? How can they get in touch with you?
Good. And the next, I'm teaching for you to have an idea. I have different wear different hats. One of them is that I work for an assessment company called Piplet, that is part of the ETS group. So I assess Brazilian Portuguese, which is one of the little candidates for over the world. And I work for the University of Cambridge assessing English and IELTS, and I assess them too. But the next thing that I'm developing a course now for teachers who want to teach academic writing, right? English for academic purposes. So you'll soon hear more about it. Then you are more than welcome to join if you want to teach or if you want to learn how to revise work, because it's a very rich market for writers and editors, right? Whatever you do.
Certainly.
Or rewrite sometimes.
That sounds
you can
absolutely
make
great.
a lot of money.
I'm sure we've got some academic writers with us today, but yeah, I recommend everyone connect on LinkedIn with Julio. If you want some resources and all of the links with the replay of this webinar and links to some good discussion of native speakerism, and so if you want to find out more, I am going to be delivering a PDF with all of these links on my weekly newsletter. That will be next week. So if anyone wants that, just DM me and I'll tell you how to sign up, or visit my website. My website is englishwritingcoach.uk. englishwritingcoach.uk. Okay, just like the words on the screen plus a .uk. So thanks for coming, everyone. Apologies for the slight audio difficulties. It's been really great hearing your opinions, and I hope this really sparks a discussion about native speakerism in the industry. As I said, sign up to my newsletter if you'd like. Just DM me or visit my website. And Julio, thanks very much for coming and sharing your work with everyone.
Well, very. Yes, a terrible sound thing. There's my computer only accepts Zoom, nothing else. So I had to get my mother's tablets, and I couldn't use it. Well, it's been a pleasure. Do get in touch if you need any help or assistance, or if you want somebody to advocate with you against native speakerism. Thank you very much.
Well
Thanks,
said.
Philip, for inviting
Brilliant.
me.
On that note, we'll say goodbye. Thanks for coming, everyone, and we'll see you at the next webinar.